Good morning, friends. Are you ready to finish the book today? I don't think that we're going to be able to do it in just one recording, but hopefully in two. Chapter 55, The Stone Squirrel. When he was finished, Flora's mother stood over his shoulder, reading and nodding and saying, "That's right, that's right. That ought to do. There was a few misspellings, but then you're a squirrel. Of course you're going to misspell things." She lit another cigarette and leaned against the kitchen table and considered him. "I guess it's time," she said. "Wait here. I'll be right back." And he did as she said. He waited. She left the kitchen. He simply sat there, unmoving. It was as if she had put a spell on him, It was as if typing the lies, the wrong words, had depleted him of all ability to act. Once, long ago in a garden in springtime, Ulysses had seen a squirrel made of stone, gray, hollowed eyes, frozen. In his stone paws he held a stone acorn, and he would never get to consume. That squirrel was probably in the garden now, still holding that acorn, still waiting. "I am a stone squirrel," thought Ulysses. "I can't move." He looked over at the words he had typed. They were untrue words. Several of them were misspelled. There was no joy in them, no love, and worst of all, they were words that would hurt Flora. He turned slowly, he sniffed his tail, and as he sniffed, he remembered the words that Flora had shouted at him in the giant do-nut. "Remember who you are, you're Ulysses." This helpful advice had been followed by a single powerful word, act. He heard the sound of footsteps, and what should he do? What action should he take? He should type a word, but what word? No more typing. I'm trying to get it straight. Chapter 56, Kidnapped. She woke with a start. The house was incredibly dark, so dark that Flora had wondered if she had gone temporarily blind. "Ulysses," she said. She sat up and stared in the direction of the door. Slowly the rectangular outline of it appeared, and then she could see that it was ajar. "Ulysses," she said again. She got out of bed and went down the darkened stairs and past the little shepherdess. "You stupid lamp," she said. She made her way into the kitchen. It was empty. The typewriter was unmanned or unsquirreled. "Ulysses," said Flora. She walked over to the typewriter and saw a piece of paper glowing white in the dim light. "Uh-oh," she said. She leaned in close. She squinted. "Dear Flora, I am terribly fond of you, but I hear the call of the wild, and I must return to my natural habitat. Thank you for the macaroni and cheese. Yours, Mr. Squirrel." Mr. Squirrel? Call of the wild? Terribly fond? It was the biggest lie Flora had ever read in her life. It didn't look like Ulysses had written it at all. Only at that very end did it appear true. 2 letters, F and L. That was Ulysses, she knew, trying to type her name one last time, trying to tell her that he loved her. "I love you too," she whispered to the paper. And then she looked around the kitchen. What kind of cynic was she, whispering "I love you" to a squirrel who wasn't even there? But she did love him. She loved his whiskers, she loved his words, she loved his happiness, his little head, his determination, his heart, his nutty breath. She loved how beautiful he looked when he flew. She felt her heart seize up. Why hadn't she told him that? She should have said those words to him. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was finding him. Flora hadn't been reading The Criminal Element for 2 solid years for nothing. She knew what was going on. The squirrel had been kidnapped by her mother. She took a deep breath. She considered what to do, what action to take. In the event of a true and genuine emergency, an absolute and undeniable crime, the authorities must be notified immediately, said the Criminal Element. Flora was certain that this was a true and genuine emergency, an absolute and undeniable crime. Still, it didn't seem like a good idea to notify the authorities. If she called the police, what would she say? "My mother kidnapped my squirrel"? The Criminal Element. If for some reason the authorities are not accessible to you, then you must seek help in other quarters. Whom do you trust? Whom do you know to be a safe port in a storm? Flora suddenly remembered her dream, how warm William Spiver's hand had felt in her own. She blushed. Whom did she trust? Good grief, she trusted William Spiver. Chapter 57, Tootie to the Rescue. It was 2:20 a.m. The grass was heavy with dew. Flora was picking her way through the darkness. She was breathing heavily because she was carrying Mary Ann in her arms, and Mary Ann, for all of her pink cheeks and delicate features and excessive stupid frilliness, was incredibly heavy. Talk about stout, said Flora. The criminal element. Can one reason with a criminal? This is debatable, but it is true that the rules of nursery school are often in good effect in the criminal world. What do we mean by this? We mean that if the criminal has something you want, then he must have something he wants. Only then is it possible for some kind of decision to begin. There was nothing and no one that Flora's mother loved more than that lamp. Together, Flora and William Spicer would find her mother. They would offer to exchange the little shepherdess for the squirrel, and then all would be well, or something. That was Flora's plan, but first she had to find William Spicer, and she didn't think it would be a good idea to ring Tootie's doorbell at 2:20 a.m. William Spicer, said Flora. Here she was, standing in the darkness, holding a unlit lamp and hoping that a temporarily blind boy would hear her call his name and come to help her rescue her squirrel. A squirrel who, for a superhero, sure did seem to find a lot of... A squirrel who, for a superhero, sure did seem to need a lot of rescuing. Things were pretty grim. William Spicer, she said again. William Spicer. And then, without really intending to, she started saying William Spicer's name over and over, louder and louder. William Spicer, William Spicer, William Spicer, William Spicer, William Spicer! There was no way he would be able to hear her, of course. She knew that. But she couldn't make herself stop. She just stupidly, idiotically, hopefully, kept saying his name. Flora Bell? William Spicer, William Spicer, William Spicer, William Spicer, Flora Bell? William Spicer, William Spicer, William Spicer, Flora Bell! And there he was, standing at the darkened window, conjured, apparently, by her need and her desperation and her words, William Spicer. Or at least the shadow of William Spicer. Oh, said Flora, hello. Yes, hello to you too, said William Spicer. How lovely of you to visit in the middle of the night. There's been an emergency, said Flora. Right, said William Spicer. Just let me get my bathrobe. Flora felt a familiar prick of irritation. It's an emergency, William Spicer. There's no time to waste. Forget about your bathrobe. I'll just put on my bathrobe, said William Spicer, as if she hadn't said anything at all, and I'll be right there, wherever there is. It is shockingly difficult to locate even the most obvious things when one is temporarily blind. The world is very large to navigate when you can't see. Although, to be perfectly frank, I have trouble navigating the world even before the advent of blindness. I've never been what you would call coordinated or spatially intelligent. It's not even that I bump into things, it's more that things leap out of nowhere and bump into me. My mother says that this is because I live in my head as opposed to living in the real world. But I ask you, don't we all live in our heads? Where else could we possibly exist? Our brains are the universe. Don't you think that's true, Flora Bell? I said it's an emergency. Well, then I'll put on my bathrobe and we'll sort it out. Flora put Mary Ann down on the ground. She looked around wildly in the darkness. What was she looking for? She didn't know. Maybe a stick that could help, that she could use to hit William Spicer over the head. Flora Bell, Ulysses is gone, she screamed. My mother kidnapped him. I think my mother is possessed. I think she might hurt him. Do not cry, she told herself. Do not cry, do not hope, do not cry. Just observe. Shh, said William Spicer. It's okay, Flora Bell. I will help you. We'll find him. And then the light in William Spicer's room came on, and Tootie said, What in the world are you doing, William? Looking for my bathrobe. Tootie to the rescue. The words appeared above Tootie's head in a neon kind of brightness. Tootie, shouted Flora. It's an emergency. My mother has kidnapped the squirrel. Flora, said Tootie. She stuck her head out the window. Why do you have that awful lamp? It's complicated, said Flora. Again with the lamp, said William Spicer. What in the world is the meaning of the lamp? My mother loves the lamp, said Flora. I'm holding it hostage. Desperate times call for desperate measures, said Tootie. That's right, said Flora. It's an emergency. I'll just get my purse, said Tootie. Chapter 58, Nothing Personal. It was dark, very, very dark, and there was a smell of smoke. Flora's mother had him in a sack, and the sack was flung over her back, and she was walking somewhere, and it was very, very dark. At the last minute, Flora's mother had picked up a piece of paper with his poem on it and threw it into the sack along with him. What was this meant as kindness? Was she mocking him, or was she merely covering her tracks? The squirrel didn't know, but he held the crumpled ball of paper to his chest and tried to comfort himself. He thought, worse things have happened to me. He tried to think of what they were. There was a time the pickup truck had ran over his tail. That hurt very much. There was also an incident with a BB gun, and a teddy bear, and a garden hose, and a slingshot, and a bow and rubber arrow. But everything that had happened before paled in comparison to this, because there was so much more to lose now. Flora and her round and lovable head, cheese puffs, poetry, giant donuts, shoot. He was going to leave the world without ever having tried a giant donut. And Tootie said that she was going to read poetry out loud to him. That would never happen now either. It was very dark in the sack. It was very dark everywhere. I'm going to die, thought the squirrel. He hugged his poem closer, and the paper crackled inside. This is nothing personal, Mr. Squirrel, said Flora's mother. Ulysses held himself very still. He found the sentiment difficult to believe. It really has nothing to do with you, said Flora's mother. It's about Flora Belle. She is a strange child, and the world is not kind to the strange. She was strange before, and she's stranger now. Now she is walking around with the squirrel on her shoulder, talking to the squirrel, talking to a typing flying squirrel. Not good at all. Was Flora strange? He supposed so, but what was wrong with that? She was strange in a good way. She was strange in a lovable way. Her heart was so big, it was capacious, just like George Buckman's heart. Do you know what I want? Said Flora's mother. Ulysses couldn't imagine. I want things to be normal. I want my daughter who is happy. I want her to have friends who aren't squirrels. I don't want her to end up unloved and all alone in the world, but it doesn't matter, does it? Doesn't matter, thought Ulysses. It's time to do what needs to be done, said Flora's mother. She stopped talking. Uh-oh, Ulysses thought. Chapter 59, Destination Unknown. Tootie was driving, if that's what you want to call it. She didn't have her hands at 10 and 2 o'clock. She didn't have a hand at any o'clock. Basically, Tootie drove with one finger on the wheel. Flora's father would have been appalled. They were in the front seat, all four of them, Tootie, Mary Ann, Flora, and William Spicer. They were speeding down the road. It was alarming and exhilarating to be going so fast. So your plan is to effect an exchange, said William Spicer. The lamp for the squirrel. Yes, said Flora. But, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we have no idea where the squirrel and your mother are. Flora hated the phrase, correct me if I'm wrong. In her experience, people only said it when they were right. Ulysses, Tootie shouted out her open window. Ulysses. She could see the squirrel's name, Ulysses, flying out of the car and into the night. A single beautiful word that was immediately swallowed up by the wind and the darkness. Her heart clenched. Why hadn't she told the squirrel she loved him? I hate to be the voice of reason, said William Spicer. Don't be then, said Flora. But here we are, speeding down the road, and we are speeding, aren't we, Great Aunt Tootie? Surely we are exceeding the posted speed limit. I don't see a posted speed limit, said Tootie. She hollered Ulysses' name again. In any case, said William Spicer, it seems that we are going extremely fast, and we are speeding where, exactly, we don't know. We are en route to an unknown destination, calling out the name of a missing squirrel, all while it doesn't seem one bit rational. Well, what's your idea, said Flora. What's your plan? We should try to think of where your mother would have taken him. We should be logical, scientific. Ulysses, shouted Tootie. Ulysses, screamed Flora. Saying his name won't make him appear, said William Spicer. But saying William Spicer's name over and over had made him appear. This, Flora knew from Terrible Things Can Happen to You, was a magical thinking or mental causation. According to Terrible Things, it was a dangerous way to think. It was dangerous to allow herself to believe that what you said directly influenced the universe, and sometimes it did, didn't it? Do not hope, Flora thought, but she couldn't help it. She did hope. She was hoping. She had been hoping all along. Ulysses, she shouted. The car slowed down. What now? Said William Spicer. Have we spotted something squirrel related? Tootie took a single finger to the steering